So, Mikiyas, right? My man. I'm so glad that you're actually able to do this. I'm really happy to talk to you today. So, we're going to be talking a little bit about your experience working with us in the Ivy League Roadmap team. You're one of the 50 students that we selected, and really glad we did because your results were phenomenal. Just to start everyone off, why don't you give me a short list of the schools that you got into this year that you're the most proud of?
Vanderbilt was the first one that came with shock. I had a couple of rejections that had stung, and then Ivy Day came around, and I was like, oh, Cornell, Brown, Yale, Berkeley, shocking because I was out of state. I was like, what? Berkeley of all places? So, four Ivies in Berkeley.
Yeah, I know. No, you knocked it out of the park on Ivy Day. I was really proud of you with that too. You got into a bunch of them. I mean, Vanderbilt certainly is the first one. It shouldn't have been that much of a surprise. Why don't we go way back? So, when you first started the program, I mean, what sort of things did you accomplish up to that point, and where were you at that point?
Up to that point, I had no SAT coming in. I remember that. I had a 3.878 or a 3.9 if you, I guess, round it. Um, I was at the time, I remember I was a little bit scared about that. I didn't know like what expectations were needed because I was like, oh my gosh, I've had like three B's in my high school career, and we kept it that way. Luckily, senior year, I locked in, but um, so I had that, and I had my business, of course. I knew that would somewhat set me apart because I just had that fuel to start something, and I put initiative to it. And I even before that, I remember I thought about not continuing it because I thought it would distract me from school before I joined. And long story short, I'm glad I kept it over the span of the 2 years because it definitely helped me a lot.
Why don't you go into a little more detail with that? Tell people about your business because I think a lot of kids your age, it would not have the audacity to do the kind of business you're doing, and I'm really impressed with the level of success you actually had even before we got involved.
So originally it was me and my friend that had done a little bit of like vacuuming cars on the side, but then it wasn't really a business. It was just like get some cash. We're little high schoolers, of course. So he was a year older than me. He goes to college, and I was like, okay, I want to make this legit. Like, let's make it real. So I actually start having an Instagram, a website, and all of that, and I start detailing interiors of cars, washing the outside, and then I take a little bit of level up and I start learning to polish paint, apply ceramic coatings, and the business grew from there. And then once I got onto Google Ads and I learned how to get organic leads, it just was stable from me not having to advertise anymore. So once it got to that level, I could take the pedal off, and I was just I knew that I would get customers regardless of putting out ads. So
I love it. Good. And talk to me a little bit about what you were hoping to study in college. I mean, what are your long term goals?
long-term goals, I want to get into chemical engineering. I've always loved the sciences. I've always been a STEM person since the beginning. But over the course of high school, I got to like environmentalism, being out. I was competing in Envirothon, and my biology teacher had a big influence on me. So at first, I had a hard time connecting the two because I didn't want to just go into environmental science and not have any connection with the things I already liked doing. So once I could finally connect it with my business, which was, we can make more environmentally friendly car chemicals that won't hurt the environment as much, and just making better chemicals more efficient way, I knew that I could, go into the engineering path like I always wanted to, but also have a piece of something from high school that I love doing.
And I loved that because that was a huge theme that came out in your application too. So like whenever you can merge like something you're doing as like a long term project, and your business definitely qualifies as that, with something you're hoping to do in the future, I felt like that was a big narrative. Talk to me a little bit about how that evolved actually. So maybe take us back to when we first started working together. Why don't you first tell me about your journey finding this program in the first place? Like how do you hear about us to begin with, and what was it that made you think that you'd actually want to join?
It was during my junior year. You were consistently popping up on my TikTok, and probably because I'd be searching up, college admissions videos, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's next year. And I told you about my friend. We literally would be sitting next to each other in calc. And I remember there was a period of time in December where he wasn't even paying attention. He was just writing essays middle of class. And I was like, you probably should pay attention. Like, he was more worried about that. He's like, oh my gosh, I have to get these in. I didn't start early enough. Long story short, it worked out for him. I still talk to him almost daily. He got into MIT, so everything worked out. And I was like, okay, maybe we don't want to do that stressful, whatever he did. Let's hire this guy because he seems very trustable. And then I said, let me tell my friend too, because I knew we had both had good ambitions.
And it worked out for both of you, by the way. It's kind of funny. You and their friend got you both in some of the best schools in the world.
I was like, well, we both did it. Two kids from the Midwest. All right, let's do this.
Not bad, right? I like it. So again, tell me a little bit more about the details. So, like, were there any messages in particular that attracted you to the program? Was it the authority there? Was there some piece of insight maybe I gave that stood out to you? I'm curious.
I remember watching your videos, and it wasn't the usual, like, apply for these clubs or, do this research project, or because I noticed like a lot of like the ones I had seen before was like that, but then you gave a different angle, like, maybe have that better SAT even if it is test optional, because that gives you leverage. All like the insider detail about like, oh, actually have something more meaningful as a passion project rather than, I was president of X clubs or whatever. The videos you made definitely stood out from what I was seeing at the time. So I said, of all the ones I've seen, this one seems the most trustable.
I love it. No, and when I did your first interview there too, I thought it was a phenomenal case. One of the things that I don't even know if I got a chance to tell you this too. I don't always take students who like on the face like were perfect when they got in, because I think when you got in you were scoring like what, like a 1200 on the SAT, something like that.
Hadn't even started studying, and then I remember even after you did take me, we took a practice test on your website. I got like an 1130, and I've never been a good test taker. Like I'll do well at school, I'll win science competitions, even at the state level. But you put me in front of a test, I bad test taker. So I can make stuff. Like I'm an engineer, but I don't know.
Could you actually describe the journey with that though? Because I think people would find that really interesting. Because like I know you describe yourself as a bad test taker, but by the end of the process, it didn't look like that at all.
Yeah, at first, of course, we took our practice tests, and then we knew what to attack from there. I had to just go back to the basics, do some geometry stuff, do some algebra stuff, algebra 2 stuff. I was in calc at the time, and I hadn't really done like the basic geometry and algebra in so long. It seemed a little foreign because I'd just been used to doing derivatives and integrals, and I know that sounds crazy, but it happens. You lose some of the stuff you didn't pay attention to a couple of years ago.
No, it's not crazy at all. Actually, it's just something I tell people. Even in my book, I made sure to note this. I tell people to take the SAT the second you finish Algebra 2. Because if you wait a year or two, it's just going to go right over your head. You're going to forget all of it. Right? Because it's not just you. It's for everyone. Like the math, it goes in one year and out the other after a while. Like it's not your fault at all. Like don't take that personally. But okay, so you had to catch up on some of the math first. And did your math score go up after that?
Math, I think we started out at like a 680, which a mid score, not like a bad score, but definitely a little mid. It was close to that 700s. And then I remember it was also self-determination alongside your tutoring program. So I bought a couple books, and every day, like anytime I got free time during school, I'd be going through the College Panda math book. After school, late night, after homework, I'd just be doing those books, taking practice tests on your website, doing the blue book ones, reserving the blue book ones because there was limited amount at the time, and doing the question bank questions that the College Board releases. So I remember October was like the big bad test, because I remember sweating during that test, literally, because the test was so hard. I was like dripping sweat. I remember having to wipe the mouse pad or whatever because I was like, why is this October test so hard? And I thought I flunked it. I remember texting or emailing my tutor like, oh, we might have to go back. And then I got a 14, 15. I was like, really? And that came by shock. And so I just had to go back and improve my reading to get that 1480 super score. And I was like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, anything over a 1450 is like usually okay. This is why I tell people, like, because people I think got spooked by test optional, and that's why I'm kind of glad that the colleges are getting rid of it next cycle, just because there were a lot of kids, and I see this on my social media, and if you've seen this in my comment section, where people would be like, I got a 1400, should I go test optional? I'm like, no. Like that you're like above the 95th percentile. Like send the scores. Like I don't know what you guys are afraid of. Like it's a great score. You did phenomenal. And a 1480 super score is awesome. That's better than like probably I mean that's way above 99th percentile to be honest. So like it's one of those things that you put it in there and it's like okay great. Like your academics are solid. Tell me while we're on stats for a second, could you talk a little bit? Did you take any AP classes? Any AP scores you sent in also?
I sent two of my AP scores. There were just two fours. The other ones, I knew I was applying for engineering. I didn't have very good STEM ones. So I was like, I don't know. So I sent an AP World and AP US History, and I know some of my essays talked about how I love to just study history on my own. I got fours in both. That last point, I don't know what happened, but I sent those. But yeah.
Yeah, and you had a lot of other things to buoy your academic rating. So like that's all like the input. So you had like a high GPA going into this. Thank God we got your SATs sorted out, which is good. And by the way, 1480 is not bad for somebody who says you're a bad test taker. Pretty good in the end. And then you had that and with a few AP scores, you were pretty solid. Talk to me a little bit about entering, the program, like maybe the first couple of sessions. What was the impression that you got from that? What do you feel were the pieces of value that you started to get there?
It was definitely when it came to the essays that having that professional input because like I remember I wrote my first draft and I was like, oh, this can't get any better. This is it right here. Let's just send this in. And then after the first few sessions, I remember after the first session I was like, okay, a different point of view. All right, let's fix it. And then I still was like, oh, okay, this is good, perfect. But you always had something new to say and some new perspective. So it's very hard to have that if you don't have somebody who knows what they're doing, just telling you like, oh, I would remove this part or I would add this part in. So yeah, that was definitely a. I knew from the start. I was like, okay, thank goodness I have somebody else looking at my stuff because it would have been different.
Yeah, the feedback can be a huge thing. I remember when we were writing that essay. Do you remember when we were talking about being, was it the professional sandwich chef?
Yes, that went to a lot of colleges. So
That was one of my favorite ones, and maybe we'll share that if you're comfortable later on. I'm curious, but so a lot of what makes these essays special. I mean, you tell me if you agree with this. I think is that we're spending a lot of time together, and I loved in the first couple of sessions really getting to know you a little bit and doing that sort of deep background, so that when it came time to actually go draft some of these things, we started picking out all those like little niche stories, those little like really emotional moments, and then reframing them in a way that you really wouldn't expect. So something could go from like as simple as like, okay, I made sandwiches for my siblings to, oh no, this is actually like a really like almost tearjerker essay. I
yeah.
thought it was phenomenal. In the end, you had a lot of really good nuggets like that. That was good. Tell me what advice you would give, and this is really important, I think, to students who are going to be entering our program because I want them to be watching this video too. Say they're just starting off with the essay editing. What advice would you give them about their process, their organization, working with one of our editors? What was that like for you, and what are some things that maybe you would want them to know so they can get the most out of it?
I would say don't be afraid, even if it's word vomit, to put something down. I think that was such a big roadblock for me. Sometimes I would stare at something for like 20 minutes and be like, I wouldn't say that. That's so cringe. Okay, can I think of something else? And I would just be having nothing. No work was being done in my head. I'm trying to like look through a bunch of stories. But at the end of the day, if I just put something down, even if it's trash, ultimately something's there, so we can still assess it. So that and just be ready to work. You really need to want it. Even starting early sometimes it might come down to that last wire, like polishing some things. And I remember towards the end, I was getting tired of the essays, looking at a computer so much. I knew it would be worth it. So, uh,
100%. Yeah, no, the hard work always pays off. It really does. And that's something I think people underestimate going into this stuff because like you think that it's going to be just like a little bit or like, oh, okay, I'll just like casually write this like maybe like a month or so before it's due. It's like, no. Like we had to start those. I think we started working on your essays like what? I think it was maybe like July or something.
Yep, I met with you literally the day before I left to Italy and Greece. Oh no,
Right?
the
Yeah.
day of. The day
Oh,
of.
it was the day off. Okay.
Yes.
That's great. I
That
didn't.
morning we had that first meeting. I left for 10 days, came back, and started working.
Right. So we had to start months in advance, and it's still a lot of work. But you work with the editors, and you make that work. What was that like for you, actually? Describe, if you could, for me. What was the experience like? Both working with me, and then I know you work with an editor on our team. I think it was Arlene, right, that you were working with.
It was Arlene. It was great experience. I liked how sometimes you both would have different perspectives to put in. So like maybe an essay looks okay, and you're like, this looks okay, let's take it to the editor. And when I would go to Arlene, there would still be some things she would nitpick just so it can get fully polished down. So it was good to have a separate perspective that's almost like an AO, fresh eyes, never seen it before, doesn't even know you. Let's see what this kid's all about. It gives you that kind of, it warms you up for that college admission game, let's just say.
100%. Yeah, and that's why we love that. So in my system, this is kind of like different. I mean, you know this already, but for people who are listening, what we do differently here that other programs aren't really doing is that you have this interaction where like I'm on top of this and supervising a lot of the essays being drafted, but then you have an editor that's also going to go proofread and work with the students like live on these essays. And so that kind of interaction, I disagree with my editor sometimes, and so we'll actually even have like debates amongst ourselves of like what's the best idea and how we can best frame this. And you can't have that even with like one person looking at it. So it's nice. So you get like that, like you said, it's like a taste of the admissions committee, sort of reviewing the essay and making sure we really find anything that could be a little better and maybe a little more persuasive. And ultimately, it's there to help you express your voice too. Do you feel like your voice was authentic in the end, and the version that we got?
Yeah, I would definitely say so because obviously I was doing like the majority, like I was doing brainstorming and coming up with the stories. It was just that extra salt almost, just like somebody polishing it. Oh, let's take out this part. Not important. Let's save some words so you can add something else. Because really, when you write stuff, you try to like include all the details. Oh wait, what if they don't know this? They need to know some context. And then you fill it up, go overboard with the words, but then you need somebody else saying like, not important. Like if I didn't know this part about you, it would still be the same. And
100%. I tell people a lot of the writing these essays is kind of like breathing. Sort of like you breathe out when you're writing it, and then you need an editor to come in and like sort of breathe in, and sort of suck it in, like cut the stuff off, and that way you end up with something that's much more moderate at the end. So you're creating and destroying at the same time, and that sort of yin and yang thing is what leads to something that's a really beautiful product. I love that. Okay, good. Talk to me a little bit about your expectations. Going into that sort of end zone there. So you started your senior year. You're getting ready to submit. The deadlines are coming up. What was that like for you emotionally, first of all? And what advice would you give to people who are about to go through that part of the process?
it was definitely a battle because at the time I had finals coming up. I had everything. It's like that time of year where you basically get no rest. So you're getting worked at school. The SAT went literally to December. College essays had to get going. And I was like, I'm literally living three lives here. I'm writing essays here, preparing for tests here, and then doing school. So, and the clubs, of course, a lot of these kids trying to go to these big colleges are also involved in stuff. So, number one, be prepared for some time management because if you don't manage your time, you're going to be very stressed out. But number two is know that there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So at times, emotionally, it'll get to you where you're like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? But I remember towards the end, we're a few days away from submitting. The college essays are just there. I remember rereading them saying like, wow, I definitely came a long way. Like, this is a solid essay. Like, especially, I remember the Columbia one, rereading that. And I know I got in, but I remember reading that and
That
I
was
was like,
killer.
we cooked on this one because I remember making an analogy from Greece and how it'll be like me being in New York and how
Yep.
I'd be like Aristotle because they have the core, the common core, or whatever they call it, where they
Exactly.
make you read
Right.
books.
Yep.
I'm gonna be like Aristotle's students, philosophy. I'm gonna read new books through the the Columbia core system, and I was
I
like,
love that one.
I nailed that one.
No, that was incredible. No, yeah, that was really awesome. You had a few really good singers actually. At some point, if people are curious, maybe we'll release excerpts of it. We can discuss that later. That's awesome. I love that. Talk to me about past the end game a little bit. So you put the applications in, and now we're waiting to hear back. There's a few months in between. What's that like? What did you do during that period? What would you have done differently?
For me, school continued. Obviously, I still was part of clubs, and I had to get going on that. I personally decided to take a little 1 week break, or I think that's good. I needed like a downtime where I just went out to the Northeast. The friend I told you about was doing the last second things. I visited him, visited MIT because I had applied. We had another friend 2 years older than me, an alumni of our high school. We went down to New York City, visited him at Columbia. So it was just a time to see my friends that are already gone to those colleges, people much older than me, my mentors, visit them, see how life is like at those colleges, and just see the Northeast. And I came back ready to work, got my homework in. Obviously, I continued to maintain grades. For me, I also got into a new club because we decided last second to start the first robotics team in our city. So, and they needed some type of lead programmer. So I was there learning a new programming language, Java, which I had never done before. So we did that. I competed in robotics. I remember updating the colleges like, hey, I just took this new position. We had this new team, and we went to Duluth, and we got rookie all-star award, which is not always given out. So I kept updating them. Like, it was daunting because I was like, March, that's a long time away. Like, let's go. But I continued updating some colleges, like about the things I had been doing, how I had been maintaining my grades, continuing my business, and these extracurriculars I joined. And some of those colleges I had sent that to, which I don't know if, obviously, we never know if that is the reason. They ended up accepting me. So we never know, but they definitely read that stuff.
It helps. It's an underestimated thing, and like I know I pounded people on this. I'd be telling people this nonstop of like, hey, like you need to be updating the colleges in that interim period because like people I think really underestimate how many like awards and achievements happen during your senior year. It's like you think it's over, but like it's not over. Like when they send those decisions out, they can change that decision like up to like a day or two before it goes out. It's not like it's actually final that soon. So if you have something happen between, let's say, January when you put it in and I don't know, like early March, why not send it? Tell them, it's good stuff. And I love that you did that. You're very proactive. So, bring me, a little bit through that journey of hearing back from them. So, which college did you hear back from first?
I think it was UC Davis. And then I got in. I didn't know how to feel. I was like, well, at least now I know I'm going to college. That's literally what I said. I was like, okay, I'm going to college, I guess.
Good.
So, and then I remember a week later it was Caltech, and I was like, I didn't get it. Whatever, it's Caltech. That's
hard.
a pretty low acceptance rate. I knew I just had to stay positive. Like, you
100%.
can't base one college off and then say like, oh, the rest are going to be like that. So,
Well, and they really are very independent. That's the thing. Another thing I think people really don't understand is like, people are really confused sometimes when you see people getting rejected by a lot of Ivy League schools. But like the most common way that I've seen people get into an Ivy League school is to get rejected by almost all of them. But then you get into one. And it's like, that's great, because you won the whole game. It's a success. You only need the one. It doesn't matter. But, of course, you got into way more than one. So why don't you start walking me through the good part here?
So essentially how this played out was I think I already told you MIT was my top, and then I opened that, didn't go out as well. So I was like, I remember I was stressing. I was like, oh my gosh, these IVs. If MIT doesn't want me, oh no. Like I let that play around in my head a little bit.
I know.
But then I opened Berkeley and I saw the confetti and I was like, whoa, okay.
Okay. Right.
I have something here. And then I opened maybe two wait lists.
Yeah.
So I think it was Penn, and Dartmouth, those two. And I saw wait lists and I was like, okay, clearly some of them think I'm good enough, but hopefully the rest are on wait lists. And then I think it was Brown I opened first, and I said congratulations. It had no confetti, so my heart sunk for a second. I was like, oh. And then I read,
Put their game up. They can't even add a confetti gift to
yeah,
this.
that's
Come
what I
on.
said. They don't even have a print PDF thing on there. So I was like, whatever. But I saw congratulations and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually got
Pretty
into an
cool.
Ivy.
Of
And
course.
then I opened the next one. I can't remember which one it is, but I think it was Cornell, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I literally
Congrats.
had that one friend I told you about that I went
Right.
to visit on FaceTime. I was like, I was telling him like, oh my gosh, I got into Brown and then Cornell, and then I was like, okay, I've played my marbles here. I don't know. We're stretching it if I get into any more. So I opened the Yale one. I see the video come up, and I was like, oh my gosh, the video came up. I got in. I don't even just read it. And same
Incredible.
thing
I
happens with
love it.
Columbia, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the whole time. I was
Knocked
like,
it out of
this
the
is
park,
fun.
man. Incredible. I love it. Love it. I'm so happy you got to have that reaction. Were you on FaceTime with your friend the whole time too?
Yeah, I was. We were. He was on Christmas break, so I was just on FaceTime with him the whole time, and he got to see the whole reaction, and he was freaking out too. So
That's amazing. It's always best to do this stuff with friends. I recommend this to people all the time. Like one way or the other, you want to have like your friends and family around you when this is happening. Because like if it's good news and it's really good, if it's bad news and you really want someone to give you a hug,
yeah,
it's good.
my mom, and my brother were there too, and my mom was like, "Where's that one at? Oh, what state is that?" Oh, you got into Brown, texting your friends. Oh, you got into Brown. Oh, you got into Yale.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And well deserved, all of them. Okay. On Ivy Day, you didn't tell me the normal way about you getting to these colleges, okay? So why don't you walk me through that exactly? Because you threw me for a loop.
Yeah, so after all the reactions had happened with my friend and my parents, and so I was like, how do I tell Andreas? And the craziest way possible. I didn't want to just say, "Oh, I got in," because that's a little boring. So I said, what would it be like? What would he think if I just like bombed all of them? No Berkeley, no Ivy. So I literally sent you a message said, "Oh, Andreas, I went 0 for 8 and no Berkeley," and then you were like, "Oh my
You
gosh."
know that? Like I saw that. I'm like, there's no way. Like there's no because I knew your profile. I knew your essays inside and out. Like, who are you kidding? Like if they take anybody, like, one of them is going to take you. Come on.
Yeah. I remember you were like, "It's okay, man." Like, just trying to be like supportive. I was like, "Ah, nah, happy April Fools or early
Yeah,
April
it's a
Fools."
happy early April Fools. And I'm like, what? Like, because I don't know. I'm like, I was so sad. Like, if Mikiyas didn't get him, like, maybe I don't even have the sauce. And it's like, bam. Like, no, actually, God's like a ton of them at once. I'm like, oh, okay, good. Not too bad then. That worked out. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Incredible. Good. I'm so proud of you. Tell me a little bit about your reaction after the fact. I mean, like, so tell me, did you get financial aid packages from them? Like, ballpark, like, what are they offering you? Are they giving you a good deal?
So some of the colleges haven't sent. They sent me an email saying they're gonna like send it shortly.
Okay.
I remember there was a few files I need to send still. I
Okay.
must have just forgotten. They emailed me like, "Hey, we're finishing up. Can you send these?" So I sent them that. I know Cornell gave me a couple $1,000s a year to
Okay.
be
That's
part
nice.
of some program.
Okay.
So there was that, and yeah, and then there was also a scholarship because they want me to come over the summer and start early, and I also get financial aid for that. So
Nice.
I am leaning that way, regardless of the scholarship, but that
No,
adds.
I was going to ask you that next. So, like, I mean, you got into all these amazing schools. Like, I mean, where are you going to go?
I'm leaning towards New York, probably Cornell, upstate New York. I know Ithaca. It's gonna have the depressing winters just like North Dakota, but I'm used to that. I'm acclimated to that,
It'll
anyways.
feel
So
familiar.
yeah, so we're leaning that way for now. I might go out and visit just so because I haven't seen upstate New York. I've been to
Yeah.
Columbia, obviously. I know what that's like the very like fast-paced New York City lifestyle. So, but yeah,
No, I'm curious. No consideration of Yale? I would have thought you'd jump for that one.
it is definitely in my considerations, and I was looking into their engineering program, and I was trying to see what pipelines they have, like what research opportunities they have.
Cornell's crazy for that.
Yes, I want to get into research. So I know Cornell does have a little bit more opportunities that you can do for research. Not that Yale is bad in any means; they make wonderful engineers, but some resources may be limited. They might not have all the research equipment you might want for certain types of scenarios, and that's what I saw from asking around. So But I haven't committed anywhere, so I'm not gonna say like, oh, no to Yale immediately. So
Well, we'll have to send you a few baseball caps. You can do a whole thing where you put them on, right?
yeah.
All right. So give me some broad strokes. What was it like going through this process? What was your favorite part of the process? What was your least favorite part? And then we'll talk about maybe your experience with the program in particular.
I think definitely my favorite part was that essay revising and editing. That I think that would be one of the most valuable parts of this program.
Yeah.
I would say close second is the SAT, that final, like, oh my goodness, finally we got that 740
Right.
for both, and I was like, okay, we're good. But definitely the essay, and towards the end, it was just like, once you went in, checked all of them, made them all green, I was like, whew. I was able to breathe out, and I was like, oh, we're good, we're good.
Yeah.
So
So
that, and what was your second question? I don't know if you had
your
second.
least favorite part of this process.
I would just say sometimes the workload just gets to you, but you need to toughen out and just get it done. But that definitely having to make sure I know how to manage my time perfectly. That was a thing that
100%.
made it hard a little bit, but it was fine.
Good. Okay. And if you were talking to a kid maybe in a similar position to yourself, maybe sophomore, junior in high school, about to go into this process, what advice would you give them, and would you recommend for them to join this program too?
I would definitely recommend it if they're wanting to put the work in and work one-on-one with somebody who's going to put a lot of energy into them, but they also need to be willing to do the same thing back. Definitely priority number one. If you don't have the test scores, get those in.
100%.
Start studying for that.
Yep.
That will, like, realistically, had I done that sophomore year or something like that, because I was taking pre-calc sophomore year. So,
Yeah.
I could have definitely done it then,
Yeah.
even the ACT, because I know the ACT has a sprinkle of pre-calc time to time and there are questions. That would have freed up a lot more for me to just focus on essays, and who knows, so we might have squeezed out one more extra good result. So,
It's not like we did that badly anyway. I feel
yeah,
like-
it's not like. But
yeah,
if there was a
100%.
younger person, I would tell them,
Yeah.
testing, start early. Like, who cares if you're, I don't know, getting a 22? You're starting early, so it doesn't matter.
100%.
You have until the very end. So definitely that will take some stress off, because, you don't have to do that during the school year too if you're starting early. But yeah, that would be advice I would give them, and take the time with the essays, write meaningful stuff down. Don't be afraid that, it might be cringy or whatever. As long as it's not crazy and out there. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be crazy and out there for the situation. But that, and yeah, I would definitely recommend to anybody who's serious about getting into it and wanting to get into their dream colleges. So
Awesome. All right. Mikiyas, this has been wonderful to chat with you about this. You have such a bright future ahead of you. I'm so happy, so proud of everything you did in this process. I want you to know on my end, we go out of our way to pick students who are going to be committed, right? When they come in, we don't expect them to be perfect, right? When you came in, there was a bunch of things you had to work on. But I knew you had that drive about you. I knew you wanted the result. I knew you were ready and willing to actually do what it took to get there. And seeing you evolve over the past year, it's been a privilege. It really has been. And I'm thrilled to see that you got an amazing result in this process too, and that you'll have a chance to do way more of this in the future. I hope in the next few years you stay in touch. Let us know. And once you actually make those eco-friendly car cleaners, you're going to tell me, and we're going to promote it all over the internet. Okay, we're going to
Yes,
tell everyone. We're going to bring
course.
that product to market. We'll make you an ecom genius, guru, billionaire. Okay, as I'm sure you will be one way or the other. All right.
yeah, and we definitely might have graduate school in our future. So you might hear from me again.
Listen, you keep the spot for life. All right. So if you need
Yeah.
anything from me, I'm here for you, bro. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.